I said on Friday that for some people, reality comes very soon. For Admiral Halsey, who came to Antigua and Grenada, his reality came very soon because he was fired by his master after he returned to the US. And I predicted that in a video I did about Antigua. I said for other people, the reality will take a little bit longer to set in. For Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, the reality is now setting in. This is what happens when you have weak, indecisive leadership in the seat of power. This is exactly what happens. And so tonight, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana is on high alert. Why are they on high alert? They're on high alert not because of Maduro in Caracas, but because of Trump in Washington, D.C. That is why they're on high alert. Because America gets what America wants. They dictate to the world how things are set up and how things must go. And when you have weak and decisive leadership in your country, they get away with things. Right now, the United States is breaking international law, and the Senate and the Congress in the US is saying, more possibly, Trump could be breaking domestic law. He's being judge, jury, and executioner right now in this Caribbean. And we have weak leaders who have aided and abetted that kind of behavior. And if the Caribbean was not a peaceful place, and when I say peaceful, I'm talking about people really hitting the streets. If the Caribbean was like Iran and Syria and Egypt and India and France and elsewhere where people flock to the streets in demonstrations, even the same United States of America, people like Kamala Prasad Bissessa, people like Andrew Holness would not even be in office today. He is the chairman of CARICOM. The chairman of CARICOM. And today, Michael Manley has to be turning in his grave because in 1972, there was a declaration by 4 countries. The concept of the Caribbean as a zone of peace was first declared at a meeting in 1972. Where was that meeting held? That meeting was held in Chaguaramas in Trinidad and Tobago. Such a disgrace today that Trinidad and Tobago is the one that turned around and allowed the Americans to foment their war of aggression on a peaceful Caribbean. That is a disgrace today. It happened in Chaguaramas. That's where they declared it. By the leaders of 4 independent countries, including Jamaica's then Prime Minister Michael Manley. And today Manley will be rolling and turning in his grave according to old people because Andrew Holness does not have what it takes to stand up and tell the US we're not joining with your foolishness and disturbing our peace of mind here in the Caribbean. That is what it is. That is what it is. Turning in his grave. Because the Caribbean now is a war zone. And many of you who were cursing and carrying on when I first started speaking on why we should not allow this thing to ferment in the Caribbean and why Trinidad should not allow the US to have its way. Many of you were cursing and carrying on in Trinidad. A lot of you in Trinidad. Well, the reality has now hit home to the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister. It is now hitting home to many people in Trinidad as well. Weak and indecisive leadership brings war. That is what it does. Look at what the Prime Minister of Trinidad said today. Look at what the Trinidad Prime Minister said today. The PM directs media questions to US after security advisory. So the US brings out an advisory about their citizens in Trinidad staying away from US government buildings and different things because there's a heightened tension now in the region. That bombs could fall any day. Not only on Venezuela, that some of you are happy to see, but on Trinidad too, and on Guyana, and on many different countries in this Caribbean, things can happen. Our entire way of life has been disrupted because of weak and indecisive leadership. And now, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, is running from the reality she created and which I spoke about. She's running from it now. So she is now telling reporters and advising them to ask the US because they are the one that put out the alert this weekend. Could you imagine that? When asked to comment, PM Persad-Bissessar offered only a brief response. Please ask the US. It is their notice. So let me ask you a question, Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Is Donald Trump the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? Is Marco Rubio the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? Is the US Embassy now the leadership of Trinidad and Tobago? That is what you're saying to me? Because the embassy in your country has put out the alert. Of course, they would have consulted with your national security people too. They would have told you all what is going on. And so their advisory is out. But you are now telling reporters in your country to ask the US? Well, tomorrow morning, the streets of Port of Spain should be flooded with people telling you to resign and install Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and those who work in the US Embassy as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, because clearly it appears that you're not in control of your country anymore. In your campaign, it was when UNC win, everybody wins. Somebody sent a message to me Friday and said, when UNC win, everybody lose. Well, I'm not going to get into that because that has done and dusted. That's gone. The UNC is now in office. But what I'm saying, if the current Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is not in control at the wheel, at the seat of power in Trinidad, she should give it up. This alone, directing reporters to the US Embassy or to ask the US, is a sign that she is no longer in control of the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. That's a clear sign. Anybody with a modicum of common sense would know that that is a clear sign that Kamala Persad-Bissessar and her cabinet is no longer in charge of Trinidad and Tobago. I believe Washington is now in charge of Trinidad and Tobago. Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and others in the US circles who are fomenting the war and want war in our Caribbean here is now in charge of Trinidad and Tobago government. That is exactly what is happening. Somebody is saying that my volume is low. No, my volume is very high, man. Very, very high. Very, very high. Very, very high. That is what is happening right now in Trinidad and Tobago. She's not in control. She has lost control of Trinidad and Tobago. It is now being controlled by the United States of America until their war of aggression on the Caribbean, not Venezuela alone, on the entire Caribbean is over. And when it is over, others, including herself, who did not speak up, will be left with the ruins to deal with. This is such a shameful thing happening right now in the Caribbean. People are now calling on Andrew Holness to make a statement. I see CARICOM putting out a statement this evening saying that the Caribbean must remain a zone of peace. That statement, of course, excluded Trinidad and Tobago. TNT reserves its position Kamala Persad still is reserved in her position till now. CARICOM has now issued this after weeks of us talking, almost a whole month. They're now talking now the wider CARICOM. It used to be one drips and drabs. Ralph first said we don't want no war here, people criticizing. Say he loved Maduro. Well, this is what he was trying to avoid. This nonsensical thing that is happening now that will lead to panic buying in this region here. I hear people tonight talking about stores will be empty by Monday because people are thinking they have to get the candles and the toilet paper and they get the this and they get the that because they don't know what is going to happen. That is what happened here. We started talking about this a month ago. Nobody was picking up the thing. Nobody. The leaders were silent. What were they waiting on? They think that Trump was joking when he said he was going to do something? This guy went on a campaign trail and he said he was going to run as a disruptor. And that is what he's doing, disrupting the whole entire planet. So that they can get what they want. In a release today, CARICOM said leaders discussed the increased security build-up in the Caribbean and the potential impacts on member states. Only now you realize that there is an impact on the member states. Only now the prime ministers of this region are realizing that. But at least some of them, the majority of them, save and in respect to Trinidad and Tobago, who reserve its position. Trinidad reserve its position, so Trinidad does not have time with a zone of peace. Well, after all, Kamala said a zone of peace is something of a figment of our imagination. She clearly did not know what a zone of peace was meant to be. When the leaders in 1970 talk about the zone of peace, they weren't saying that you won't have a killing in each country or somebody would kill somebody in a country, or you won't have a murder in a country, They weren't talking about that, They were talking about states fighting against states. Trinidad against Grenada, Grenada against Jamaica. That is what they were talking about. It must remain a zone of peace. There's no war between states. It doesn't mean that there won't be crime in your own single country. So if she didn't know that, I am telling her tonight what it meant. Something is inherently wrong with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And people are now realizing that. The group also reiterated the importance of dialogue and engagement towards a peaceful resolution of disputes and conflict. Well, that's a bit too late. Because guess why? The United States has 10,000 troops stationed around the Caribbean now. They have bombers. They have F-35. They have helicopters. They have submarines. They have warships in our waters. Well, they say the international waters. That's what they say. So what dialogue are you going to have now? They have decided to send a CIA ops into Venezuela to do their own operation inside there. What kind of dialogue can you have now? There's no dialogue now. They want no dialogue. Trump said all dialogue is off the table when it comes to Venezuela. What dialogue the Caribbeans are calling for? From the time Trump first showed up his ugly head with this scenario, the leaders were supposed to pack their bags in a group and head to Washington DC and tell him in no uncertain term that none of us here will support this. None of us will support it. And if perchance you go ahead with it, we will find ourselves at some crossroads where we would ask other nations to look out for our security. That is what they should have done. They should have took the threat right back to Washington doorstep, but they didn't do that. They did not do it. They sat on the laurels and joke and laugh. The bunch of them did that. But today, we are now reaping the reward. This harvest here. That is what we're reaping right now. And so tonight, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana is on high alert. Why are they on high alert? Because the U.S. Embassy says, due to heightened state of alert, please avoid and refrain from visiting all U.S. government facilities in Trinidad through the holiday weekend. Actions to take: avoid all U.S. government facilities. Be aware of your surroundings. Monitor reputable news outlet. U.S. citizens seeking to travel to the United States must have a valid U.S. passport. Report any suspicious activity to local authorities. Well, local authorities? Which local authorities? They're reporting it to you because Kamala Persad said, ask the U.S., so they have to report it to you, not to her, not to the local authorities in Trinidad. And they made some stupid statements, They made some stupid statements, and I'm going to take you to that right now. I'm going to take you to that. TTPS confirmed they're on high alert, but said no need to panic. Could you believe this ignorance? So the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is saying to the public in Trinidad and Tobago. They are on high alert. A country is on high alert, but there is no need to panic. Could you believe that? A government comes to you and tell you that the country is on high alert. But then the police force tell you, don't panic. Don't panic? What do you mean don't panic? It's panic time. People living in fear now. We're talking about this for a month. Don't panic? What do you mean don't panic? You ever heard about sleeper cells? You ever heard about operatives? No, you probably don't know about that. You see? Anyway, TTPS has to know what they're all about here. And then you have the Minister of National Security. What his name is? Alexander. Alexander says that in heightened state of alert, but Trinidadians are safe. That is what he said. He said Trinidadians are safe. Very, very safe. If you look at Alexander is a very muscular person. Heavy build, structure. But I believe the way he thinks, his brain has to be very small. His thoughts has to be very small. Because I can't understand, or they're shrinking, how you could get such a warning from those who are fomenting the war, but yet you're telling people they're safe. You're telling them they're safe. The Trinidad and Tobago has an army that can defend Trinidad, really? Remember, if any attacks come from Trinidad and Guyana, remember Venezuela has all right in international law to react to that, because all is fair in war. That's what they said. It says the government remains mostly silent as the nation waits for clarity following a cryptic message from the U.S. Embassy today advising all U.S. government facilities in Trinidad and Tobago through the holiday. Listen to me. It ain't no cryptic message. It is loud and clear that there is a problem. There is a problem. Things are going to happen. It's not a cryptic message. It is open for all to see. Stop your foolishness. The embassy note urge caution, asking people to be aware of their surroundings and monitor news outlets and report suspicious activity. You ever heard the term sleeper cells? Go look it up, see what it means. This is information that the US has. The US doesn't put out things like this on a whim and a fancy. They have information that something is bubbling, the pot is bubbling. Things could happen right on Trinidadian soil. That is what they're telling you. It ain't a cryptic message. Only dumb and ignorant would say that, but it's a cryptic message. Ain't dumb and ignorant would say that. It is not cryptic. Ay. Boy, I tell you, when I tell you they have lost control of everything, they have lost control of everything. Maduro said Venezuela, he's warning Guyana and Trinidad. If attacks come from your soil, expect forceful response. I know a lot of people will say something, but I tell you this, I tell you this. We are living in some serious times. Very, very serious times. And if we don't have proper leadership, we'll all end up paying the price. I see my friend Ruben is on the back end. I see Ruben is on the back end there. Let me see if I could bring him in and ask him what is the situation like in Caracas. And then we'll get back to this. Ruben, good night to you. How are you doing in Caracas?
Hey Ernesto. Well, I'm fine. Caracas is normal, but We are actually enjoy because as in Trinidad they have their Indian feast. In Venezuela we have the feast because Jose Gregorio Hernandez is
Hmm.
finally getting a saint in the Vatican,
Yeah.
and there will be Jubilee days tomorrow and Monday. But what I don't like is that the high authorities of the church, Maria Corina, of course, and they want to politicize it. It seems like they are trying to promote the regime change operation as a miracle from Saint Jose Gregorio Hernandez, who was a wonderful doctor of the early 20th century who became Venezuela's first saint. And the other comment I have to you, I saw you, Ernesto, in another channel. You were interviewing a Venezuelan expatriate in Guyana. She sounds very much like Maria Corina. People of that age and of that ethnicity
Hmm.
in general, that's what's, and they just refuse to dialogue and they just leave the country, and many Venezuelans who live in Trinidad and Tobago are probably the same. So probably Kamla and Irfan Ali, they have a lot of support from Venezuelan expatriates.
What is it? What is the situation like in terms of preparation on the ground for any possible invasion? Has the government made any more moves? I know Maduro was saying that he was going to mobilize forces all across the country.
Yes.
Since the heightened tension from Washington, what has happened since then? Is there more people being asked to join the militias, more military equipment and being get what's taking place in that regard? What is going on?
Well, I can tell you the two most recent uh, activities.
Hmm.
Diosdado Cabello, who is the Minister of Interior and Justice, he
Yes.
was in Carayaca. That's near La Guaira. That's close to Caracas, but it's a very high mountain. And he was training uh, farmers with machetes, saying that, well, machete is going to be your weapon. It seems that we are just getting prepared for Vietnam like guerrilla
Hmm.
asymmetric warfare, looking at the messages that were conveyed there. And today, the Minister of the Military, Padrino Lopez, he
Yeah.
was at the Llanos, at the Great Plains, Barinas, Portuguesa, Cojedes and Guarico states. That was the last region because the border regions and eastern regions were prioritized, but finally he went to the hinterland. So now all of the country has
Yeah.
started initial stages of organization for that.
You mentioned.
And
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
no, well, and in the and of course, I am more like in the communications part, and
Hmm.
then I can see that the narrative of the United States is becoming it's lost. They have huge protests in the United States, and they are going to have another Senate committee to see if they can avoid United States strikes in Venezuela. And we have also been speaking a lot about the decree of war to the death that
Yes.
was made by Simon Bolivar in 1813, where this is like a second part of that. And we were trying to kick out the Spanish, and now we're trying to kick out the United States.
Let me ask you a
And
question. You said mentioned that it's almost like Venezuela is preparing for a Vietnam style war, if it ever comes to fruition, a Vietnam style. What remind us what was Vietnam like? What was the war like in Vietnam? Was it a guerrilla war that they were fighting Americans?
well, the Vietnam War, my knowledge of Vietnam War is limited, but
Hmm.
mostly it was peasants and ordinary population who just didn't want to be invaded, and they just used resistance and whatever and knowledge of the territory because Venezuela's territory is like Vietnam's territory: mountains, fields, humid, heat, and not easy for them to deploy troops here. And the troops that come, of course, there will be casualties, but resistance the longer it becomes. And the same thing happened in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the United States invaded them during 20 years until they left, because time always plays to the advantage of the local population.
Interesting, interesting. Well, you stay safe down there. Keep me posted on what is happening. A lot is happening around the region. I now see that CARICOM is giving a broad statement now. At least the broad membership of CARICOM. It took a very long time to happen, which we didn't know why it took so long. It's almost a month and a week now before they really could have said something. Except Trinidad, they have kept out of the statement. They say they're reserving their comment position, which really is a waste of time. They're resolving. They don't have anything to say. They have joined the empire and doing what they wish to do. So, but in terms of CARICOM now, I don't know. To me, in a way, CARICOM is a bit late in the statement as well. The broad CARICOM is a bit late to me because when there was a time for dialogue, was the first moment we heard about this thing gathering pace in early September.
Kamla didn't want it. Kamla destroyed that.
Well,
Kamla never wanted that. And I am one of the persons who I gave an initial applause to Kamla, because I thought it was brilliant from her to try to resurrect the Dragon Gas deal, because that's important. And
Mhm.
then I did all this business going to the Trinidad embassy and going to PDVSA and all of that for nothing, because I thought she was gonna dialogue, but she didn't. So maybe I was ingenious thinking, because I didn't know who I was dealing with.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks a lot, man. Keep me posted, and
Mm.
yeah,
One more
go
thing
ahead.
about Guyana, because I we haven't mentioned Guyana much, and for me, Guyana is like a very loved country. Essequibo, even if it's Guyana's territory, I still think it's part of Venezuela. Same than Trinidad, it was part of. Even if they are ruled by other countries and they speak English, or there is a bond between our peoples. And then I am concerned about Asruddin Mohammed. They don't want to let him be a deputy in the parliament, even
Well,
though he has had
yeah,
lots of votes. And he was very,
that's another
very,
story.
and he had.
That's another story for another time. We'll talk about that. I don't want to get off topic right now, so let's not get into that one. That's another story by another time. You understand?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate.
but that story is important, because
I know,
Asruddin Mohammed
but
is someone who can bring peace between Venezuela and
well,
Guyana.
unfortunately, he was not elected, so that's another story for another time. All right. Yeah,
Oh,
we
his
talk.
party was elected majority in Essequibo. He won regions 8,
Yeah, but
10, and
I'm
7.
talking about in the broader
Yeah,
context of Guyana. But we'll
yeah,
talk
I
about it
know.
another time. Thanks a
All
lot.
right,
Thanks a lot for joining me.
all
All
right.
right. All right, guys. So, anybody else from Trinidad and Tobago who wish to join the program, please click on the link that is at the top of the chat. It's pinned right there so that you can join me. If you want to say something, you can actually click on the link that at the top of the chat. It's pinned there at the top of the chat in YouTube. You can click on it and you can come in and you can have a word with me if you wish to let me know what's happening on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago right now, how you feel about this situation. But I say again, it is definitely interesting times that we are living in. And I am saying one more time, because of the weak and indecisive leadership of many of our Caribbean prime ministers, we are now in this position. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And I think it's a real disrespect to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for their prime minister to tell them to ask the US, because they were the ones that issued the security advisory. Madam, they issued it from an embassy within your own country. Okay? And I know not all Trinidadians, I know all Trinidadians are not supporting their government on this matter. I know that for a fact. All Trinidadians are not supporting their government on this matter. That is a fact. I know that. So I'm not speaking to the population of Trinidad and Tobago in general, really. I'm talking about the government of Trinidad and Tobago here. All right? But America is very good when it comes to false flag events. And anything I believe that happens inside, anything that happens inside Trinidad, I would know who to blame. I think we have Peter online with us. Peter, go ahead.
President good night, brother.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I see the scene as a scarce tactic.
Okay, Peter dropped out. Peter dropped out. Peter dropped out. All right. So anyone, like I said, who wish to be coming on the live, let me know what's happening in Trinidad. How you feel about what is happening right now? What do you feel about what is being said? Click the link at the top of the chat and come on in. Join me inside here tonight. Let's speak a little bit about this. Let me go and start bigging up some people because I missed a lot of people. Should have said good night to a lot of folks who joined us. Let me say. Anne Marie, Carrier Clark, Ruben just talked to me there. Gina, let me see, Robert, Striker 13, and Marijuana. Let me see who else. Dale Cupid is on. Let me see who else is here. Purple Royal, Colleen Caraway, Sandra. Let me see who else is inside. Sharon Robertson, one Gaza, 1-6, somebody there. Gabriel. Beecher. Let me see who else is inside there. Uh, Delton, Ben, Mina. I hope I got that correct. Peter Hill, Otto 718. I think that's out of Dominica. JJ is on with us. Joe Blow. Who else is there? Wise Virgin. I think I see. Let me see. So many people inside here. I can even call all one at one time. Jamila. Let me see who else is here. There's so many people. Anthony is here with us as well. Anthony Margot, Joel Royalty, Fix Skinners is there with us. I hope I'm calling that correct. Charles is there. Cornelius Elborn. Let me see who else is inside here. There's so many people. There's so many people in there tonight. How many of you guys are on there? 775. 775. I can't call everybody's name. Let me continue anyway. Olivia Haksha. How are you doing? Olivia says Errol Barrow, John Compton, who they are arresting in peace. They did their bit when alive. That's correct. That's why we had leaders with some tenacity, some fortitude, not these weak, indecisive people we have around today. Let me see what's happening here. A lot of them just love power. They just love the name power. It sounds good to have, to rule over you and to do a lot of things, but not when it comes to the time that they should really assert their power that you gave to them when you voted. They don't exercise it properly. That's the problem I have with them. I don't hate any of them. That's the problem I have with them. Let me see who else. Randy Wright, top of the night to you. Let me see who else is here. Carib View 101. Good night to you. Trinidad Watcher. Wait, Trini Watcher is on tonight. Top of the night to you as well. Bridget Martinez. Yeah. So Adversary is on. Adversary. Top of the night to you as well. Tamia is on for Africa. Blessed night to you as well from Trinidad and Tobago. Afro Grenadian locked in. That's my good buddy Afro Grenadian. You must follow his channel on YouTube as well. My good buddy Afro Grenadian out of Grenada does a very good job in highlighting all the issues in Grenada. They said Chinese are regretting voting in a mad woman as a PM. I don't think she's mad, as in the sense of mad. I don't think she is. I just think that there's some weakness in her leadership. Weakness. Grave weakness in the leadership. All right, Peter has rejoined us. Let's see if we could get Peter back in. Peter, you dropped out. Go ahead.
Yeah, the connection, the job.
No problem. Go right ahead.
Yeah, while saying, I ain't saying nothing can happen, but I just feel them trying to panic out of seeing the US Embassy knowing that two Trinidadians has been killed. And I just feel they're just trying to do that to have the people in a kind of frightened, so the people
Yes,
ain't
yes.
go rise up.
Yeah, is
You
a
catch me?
kind of an appeasement kind of thing in a sort of way, trying to pretend that they really do care, and then they bring up this one,
Yes,
they bring this
yes.
they bring this
Correct is
false
right.
flag, they bring this false
Correct.
flag, and then for Trinidadians to
Correct.
get on board with Kamla. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, we know how they operate. We know
Yes.
how the empire.
You
We
are
know how the
bright.
empire operates. We know how the
You are
empire operates.
intelligent guy.
As a matter of fact, this evening, this evening, we heard Trump saying that they're going to repatriate the two persons who they picked up as survivors. They came from Ecuador and they
True.
came from Colombia. You know, this is a very strange thing happening here. Ecuador
True.
is one of the main
Mm-hmm.
producers of cocaine out of South America
Hmm.
that goes into North America, you know. And they said
Same.
Colombia is the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But here you have
Yes. Yes.
two survivors, and just lucky enough that the two survivors are from Ecuador and Colombia, and they're going to repatriate them back
Mm.
to their country. Isn't this a strange thing happening here? Eh? Isn't this a strange thing happening here? No, it ain't strange. I just saying that it ain't strange. That's what friends are for. That's what friends are for. Remember that song? That's what friends are for. So we send them back to their homeland. Yes. In the meantime, in the meantime, Trinidadians being killed. Anyway, let's look at this. Andrew Senior TV. Daniel Edgar, top of the night to you. KYN Photography. Stephanie Campbell. Colin Wellington. I think we saw it. Well, Nehemiah is in there. Nehemiah, that's right. Nehemiah says they're milk box politicians. We got now. That's right. Someone says for the last 2 nights I witnessed and have footage of U.S. military and maybe Venezuela military drones doing surveillance between Central and Northern Trinidad for 15 minutes. They've been hovering. Let me tell you all something. Let me tell you all something. For the last 3 weeks, not only have drones been surveilling Trinidad, drones have been surveilling St. Vincent, Grenada, Barbados, and St. Lucia. And I'll tell you why. I'll get back to that very soon. Let me see if I could get Peter back in. Yeah, Peter, go right ahead.
Yeah, connection giving a little trouble. It seems I might have to listen to you offline. Well, offline then from the live
Yeah.
because
And
connection will drop in.
let me tell you something, right? Let me tell you something.
Mhm.
Connection
Yeah.
dropping not only in Trinidad, connection dropping in St. Vincent, in St. Lucia, in Antigua, in some parts of Dominica, in Jamaica. Let me tell you something. They have ships in the region that are jamming telephone signals right now.
Oh,
You
yes,
hear me?
yes,
You
yes,
hear me?
yes. Our
That is that is
ex-postcard told me that.
yes,
Yes, they no
that
lie,
is
they no lie.
that is why I was
Mm-hmm.
advising people. That is why I'm advising people to get other means of communication. Because
Right, right.
when you can't get a phone call, you're doomed. That is what has been happening in the region for the last month, the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks or so, you know. They've been jamming phone signals. They have a ship in this region that can do that. See, people don't understand what we're being set up for. We could be disconnected. Communication would be disconnected. I've been advising a lot of people to get a CB radio. You understand? Communication. Important in times of war. Anyway, let me get back to my people them here. Otto says, Caribbean people, brace yourself for what is coming. That's coming from Kiko. Colin Wellington, I thought the captain leave the ship last, but the captain jump off the ship first. This is a quality leadership in Trinidad and Tobago. Right thinking Trinis will never get on board with Kamla. We want her out. Well, you just had an election, and the overwhelming majority of Trinidadians voted for the UNC. I don't think there'll be an election tomorrow unless the entire population rise up against what is happening here. I don't think there'll be an election anytime soon. But the majority of Trinidadians voted because of the message that was sent from the UNC. And that is what is happening. I will tell you something. Sometimes there are captains that abandon the ship before the ship even goes down. Yes, a lot of captains like that, you know. A lot of captains like that. Let me bring back in Peter here. I think Peter joined us again. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, there you go, ship out in the water, they go
Absolutely.
jamming. Yeah, and that ship spying on the people in the Caribbean also too.
It has been doing that. It has been doing that.
Yeah, yes. So we have to be wiser. But I want to ask you something before I get cut off again. Besides, if things have to really happen, like
Mhm.
thing they start playing mad and bombing. Besides, food will be a problem because things can come in and go out as usual. How we
Stand,
gonna?
stand,
Yeah,
stand by a minute for me. I see Otley Ogiaro has joined as well. Otley, stand by. I have somebody else right now, Peter. So give us a few seconds and I'll bring you in, okay? Stand by for me. Stand by for me. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
yeah. As I was asking the question, if these Caucasian people them start to play mad and start bombing the
Yeah.
Spanish and them, beside food, because food go be a difficult thing now because things are coming as always want to, right? And think I go out otherwise. How it will affect small islands like St. Vincent,
Well,
Antigua,
well,
yeah.
listen. Well, listen. Almost everything that we eat in the Caribbean, I've been preaching for years. Get to your ground, plant your food, right? I've been
Mm-hmm.
preaching that. I'm preaching that for years. People laugh and they joke. They bring in every single thing, almost everything on a ship that you eat and consume in the Caribbean, right? Although we have
Right.
although we have most of the fertile lands where we can plant everything we need. So we out of commission. Food out of commission if something start happening. That's one of the things that was scarce very quickly. Food, because everything comes on a ship. Let me bring in Atley and hear what Atley has to say. Atley, top of the night to you.
Good night. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just listening.
just pull back yourself a bit from the camera now so we could see it. Right, good. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my cousin from Trinidad sent me the link. And I always listen to you. I
Yeah.
just want to say whatever you are saying is so true. Because my wife always talk about all those things about growing your own plants and everything, your own crop and thing, and
Mm-hmm.
saving up water and saving up for hard times for like we know that something terrible is gonna happen with war and thing like that. So yeah, so that's why I'm listening to you. I always listen to you. All right, so
Yeah,
that's
man.
all. Really.
Well, I hope that at least that you are prepared in some way, shape, or form, because whether we like it or not, it now appears to us that what we didn't want to happen may just happen. And if it happens, it's not gonna be any overnight thing. I just letting you know that because Russia and China, as much as people say they're not going to get involved, has made it very clear that they are going to protect their investments in this part of the region. And they have warned America to not interfere in the business of a sovereign nation. And they have made that very plain. Don't think for 1 minute. These people, what is happening here now, Atlee? It's not only Venezuela that the US wants to fight, This is a proxy war against China, and Russia. It's a proxy war. China has billions of dollars of investment in Venezuela. So this is actually a proxy war against China. We actually gonna become. I don't know what I pray to high heavens that nothing serious really happens in this place here, because I don't know what many of us will do. We very well may become casualties of something that we never wanted. But anyway, we pray and hope it really doesn't go that way still. All right.
All right. Thank you for yeah.
No problem. No problem, Utley. Thanks a lot for
Oh,
joining. All right. So that was Utley Ogaro out of Trinidad and Tobago. And like I said, anybody else who wants to join the live, click on the link at the top of the chat and you can get in and speak with me. Okay. I think Peter has rejoined. Let's get Peter back in. Peter, go ahead.
Virgin, I am on what you are a real prophet, I see you, I hear you say certain things and see the things come true. I just see this, my that's my virgin, and then this man's a prophet.
Well,
Yeah.
well, well, Peter, I tell you something. I tell you something here. If you follow the bouncing ball, you will always know what is coming next. Well, they call me a prophet. It's not really a prophet. You have to follow the bouncing ball. You have to follow the bouncing ball and you know what is happening next. I said on Wednesday that when Halsey who came to the Caribbean and went to Antigua and went to Grenada, I said when he gets back to the US, his political masters will be rid of him. He's retiring. The job that he was in is a 3-year term, really, it is. Nobody gives up that kind of position in 1 year. So you know what happened when he got back. And that's why. And the official narrative is that he's stepping down. Stepping down is just the diplomatic language for saying, I'm firing you. Okay? So let me leave that right there. I said that his reality will come very soon. I also said for people like the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the reality will take a bit longer to set in. Well, today, Saturday, The 18th of October, the reality for Kamla Prasad Bissessa has set in. Why do I say so? Because she is now telling Trinidadians, look, ask the Americans, don't ask me. So her reality has now set in. Good night to K. Go right ahead. Hello? All right, that person is not speaking, so we'll have to cut that. Um, Anybody who wants to make their point, you can join me, and we could do it from there. But as I was saying, I said on Wednesday that the reality for some people comes quicker than others. And Hosleo came immediately. I said for Kamla, it will take a bit longer. Well, today it has emerged because when a leader will tell you, ask the embassy that did the advisory, ask the US government, don't ask me, it means that she's not in control anymore. So for the moment, we could safely say that the United States government is currently in charge of Trinidad and Tobago. We can safely say that. Based on the response that the current prime minister has given to the reporters in Trinidad and given to the population, we can safely say tonight that Trinidad and Tobago is effectively being managed by the United States of America. And until this whole thing is over, we can safely say that. Effectively. Kamala is there as prime minister, but we can safely say that just for now. Let's get back to Peter. Yeah, Peter.
I don't know if they're trying to sabotage your program or not, but this connection we are dropping, I ain't like that at all.
Well. I tell you something. They will do a lot of things. I mean, until they push us off of this platform. That's fine. We will talk until that time. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, but what I'm saying, I think we can effectively say tonight, and I think I can say this to all Trinidadians tonight, that United States of America government is effectively controlling that state. They're in control of the state right now. Kamala is like a figurehead. You look when you have a country and you have a president. This is a ceremonial president. That really doesn't really hold the power. It's just a ceremonial thing. Like when you have a governor general, this is a ceremonial thing. It's really not somebody who's really in control. Yeah, it's like Trump and Rubio and Hexet and whoever else is in Washington fomenting the wars. They're effectively in control of Trinidad. And Kamala comes like a ceremonial prime minister. That is what is happening right now. Okay? I can safely say that. Yes.
Yes, Bertrand. Yeah. So you're doing a good work, Bertrand. Keep up the good work. I know, and it does inspire a lot. It does inspire a lot of people in Trinidad. Well, I from Avima in Trinidad, and right now the place calm. The place calm so far.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I really panicking. It's just a man just always have to be prepared and alert. Because
Yeah.
as you say, we're living in some serious, devastating times.
Yeah, we are living in some serious times. Some serious times. But I would tell people too, we tell people too, every movement you see happening too, is part of the grand scheme of prophecy being
True.
fulfilled as well.
Yes.
It's a larger picture. So every movement you see all these presidents and these prime ministers make, it's part of the larger grand scheme of things happening. And if you're not aware, you're going to get lost. A lot of people are not aware. I'm just saying, I'm just saying that. So tonight, CARICOM, the broader leadership of CARICOM has decided to say something once and for all. They took too long. They took too long to say it. They took too long to come to the table and to come together as a grouping and head to Washington and let them know in no uncertain terms that we don't want this kind of mess in our region. And if you intend to foment it, we'll do whatever it takes to protect and to have our security intact. Because, like always, there are other nations that people can sign security pact with. You touch me and you touch them. Today, I understand that Saudi Arabia is asking to have a security pact with the US. So if you touch Saudi, you touch United States of America. If you drop a bomb on Saudi Arabia, it means that you drop a bomb on the US. That is what a security pact is all about. They're signing that. Qatar has done the same. The region has the right to form whatever security pact they want with other nations too, in the interest of their security. Because we don't have armies around here to protect us from big bad bullies like the United States of America. The leaders of the region need to wake up, get on with the program of the day. You hear me? Just saying. Just saying. But we don't want no war down in here. We don't want no war down in here. That's all. Don't want any war. Because many of us, if there is actually a war, will not survive it. Okay? Including people like Daniel Ince, who thinks that I should not say that the United States is in charge of Trinidad. Yes, they are in charge of Trinidad. At this moment, they are in charge of Trinidad. Let's go ahead and count the many ways that they are in charge of Trinidad. Trinidad comes and it says, and the Prime Minister says to you, if Venezuela attacks Guyana, they will give Trinidad and Tobago, they will give the US Trinidad and Tobago soil to deal with Venezuela. That's one. Two, she joined the Americans in saying, violently blow them up, including her citizens being killed. Three, CARICOM make a statement. She avoids the statement. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I could go into a lot of things here tonight, but I'm not going to take up my time with trolls. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Good. Let me see if I could get this individual in. Do we have K online?
Good evening. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear. Go right ahead, my brother.
Okay. I just joined your program a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share my own thought on our situation here in the region.
Go right
If you
ahead.
added up all of the OECS, broader CARICOM, including Guyana,
Mm-hmm.
all of our military resources are nothing compared to Venezuela. So we should not be getting involved in that. However, having
Mm-hmm.
said that,
Mm-hmm.
both OECS and CARICOM probably have security arrangements with the United States regarding interdiction, drug trafficking, all of those things. We should abide by those accords. But I think CARICOM
Mm-hmm.
needs to make a clear statement that if the United States intends to land on Venezuelan soil for whatever other reasons that they have,
Mm-hmm.
that CARICOM will not associate with that. The only exception is, in my opinion, Guyana,
Mm-hmm.
because the Venezuela referendum, and I think there was some election of a governor for the county of Essequibo.
Yes.
That is a clear provocation on Guyana's sovereignty, and
It
it
is.
should
It
not
is.
stand.
It
You
is.
know, so in that case, because here's the thing, we are so small, we are all a services sector,
Mm-hmm.
and can you imagine tourism in the region like it was in Lebanon during the civil war there?
You don't
It
want
is
to.
not going to work. We have no fuel, no food security. You just alluded to that a few minutes ago. This
Absolutely.
is not our fight. There's an old African proverb: when elephants fight, only the grass suffers. And the
Mm-hmm.
entire Caribbean region, and I'm speaking specifically about OECS
Yes.
and CARICOM in the English-speaking region, we are the grass. We don't need to be involved with this. And I think the leaders need to appreciate that particular dilemma that we're in, because America is a big, powerful country, and Venezuela is relatively powerful and has very powerful friends, Russia and China. Can you imagine if they get involved in some way? There was a story in the international press in the last year or two. I think there was some proposition that Tomahawk missiles would be placed in Ukraine. And the Russians said, fine. So we're going to put the Orishnik, a missile, which is a hypersonic missile,
Mm-hmm.
faster, maybe 5-6 times faster than a Tomahawk missile in
Absolutely.
Venezuela and Cuba. So what are we going to have? A redux of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis? How is that good for the region?
Not
So
good
I
at
think
all.
the leaders need to appreciate that. And I think they need to sign a common statement affirming that. Guyana is probably the only country within CARICOM
Yeah.
that should seek an exception. I don't know if you have any thoughts you'd like to interact with me. Go ahead.
I understand Guyana's situation. It's a different situation, and I agree with them that they have a right to seek out any security pact with any nation that could provide security, because the situation between them and Venezuela is still dicey, and I think Guyana is really the exception when it comes to this thing. But while Guyana is the exception, Guyana has embarrassed Trinidad, because President Ali, even with what he is facing, is still saying and has been saying that he's urging peace in the region. So it is a very shameful thing to see that somebody whose country is in what you would call, people say, it's a conflict with another country, not a war per se, but over a land and how we're going to deal with this boundary issue. He is still saying, let us call for dialogue and peace in the region, even when this whole thing started up. And somebody whose country, I would say Trinidad, who's not in conflict with Venezuela. Listen to me, there is a drug running you see going on between Trinidad, Venezuela. It goes into St. Vincent, Barbados, all over the place. That's a normal thing that has been happening. And that did not call for 10,000 soldiers in this region. It did not call for that.
But it's not our fight, Ernesto.
But
That is not what it's
no,
about, in my
it's
opinion.
it's
I
not our
think we
fight.
agree on that.
I agree with you. It's not our fight at all. 100%. We can't
Let me
survive it.
raise
We
another
can't
dimension
survive
with
it.
you, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I think Trinidad, and I'm subject to correction on this, I think Trinidad, after the collapse of the Venezuelan economy
Mm-hmm.
and the hyperinflation that it suffered, about 7 to 8 million people left Venezuela. I think
Yeah.
about 2 million of them are in Colombia. There are
Yeah.
some in Ecuador and Brazil. I think maybe 100,000 or 150,000 maybe in Guyana. I think up to
Correct.
50 or 60,000 are in Trinidad and Tobago. I think there are some Venezuelans here where we are in St. Vincent, maybe less than 1,000. I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. But what is going to happen to those people? Because potentially, if it is believed that the Maduro regime, and I don't have any, let me put it this way. I don't think Maduro is a good guy, but then we shouldn't be fighting with him because we're also members of ALBA. I think we get our
Yeah.
propane gas from them and maybe other products in
Correct.
Venezuela. So I don't know. We
Correct.
also have to stand by those accords. But this is just my own opinion. Those Venezuelan refugees in our various CARICOM territories, what are we going to do with them if war breaks out? Are we going to create Japanese-style internment camps like in World War II that Americans did in California? What happens to those people? Because clearly, rogue elements could
Mm-hmm.
infiltrate that Venezuelan sector of the refugee population in the various countries
Correct.
and create security concerns like possibly what is happening this evening in Trinidad and Tobago. So
Correct.
how is CARICOM and the security apparatus going to deal with that? That is something I'd like to raise in this forum. Hopefully people at the level of the regional security system and governments will take it on board if they have not already thought
Yeah.
about it and think about what the solution is. I
You see
thank you
that?
for your time, sir.
You see that statement you just made there? That last portion you were talking about, with
Hmm.
the Venezuelans living in these islands and
Yeah.
people infiltrating these camps if something ought to happen like that. You see what you just mentioned there? That is why when I started, I talked about sleeper cells, because I'm getting some information, and I don't want to discuss it in this program because I have to get my intelligence on spot. But you made a point. I'm going there very soon, very very soon. I'll talk to you. Don't worry.
Thank you.
All right, good. Thanks a lot for coming in there. And that's why we're going to wrap it up tonight, guys. I'm going to get off of this one. There's going to be some weather conditions coming into these islands tonight, tomorrow, and Monday. So, those of you in the Southern Caribbean, you actually should get prepared for that. At least it's going to be a lot of heavy, gusty winds, a lot of rain, So, whatever preparations you want to make for that, you should make it. But let me say good night to everyone. We have Joel. Joel as well was there tonight. Timothy was there with us. A lot of people was on tonight. I'm not gonna call everybody's name, but everybody who was on, top of the night to you. Have a good night. Stay informed. Don't let anybody cock your mind. We will continue this program tomorrow. Take it easy. Take care.